Welcome back to the Deliveringmore platform, folks. I'm your host, Ben Alcar. Thank you for your continued viewership morning, afternoon, and evening. We appreciate it, as always. If you could, hit that subscribe button down below. That's going to help us out more you could ever know. I have a fantastic conversation to get into today on the Deliveringmore podcast. We have with us the co-founder, one of the co-founders of Deliver That, Aaron Hoffman, and Chief Revenue Officer for Lunchbox, Stefan Hertzberg. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
It's good to be back, Benny.
Yeah, doing great. Thanks for having me.
And you are you're out in LA, Stefan? Is that what I heard you say here to Aaron right before we started recording?
Yeah, based in LA. Been here for about 5 years.
Hell yeah, man.
What part of LA? I lived in LA. I lived in Studio City for like 3 months.
This little secret called Marina Del Rey. Pretty close to Venice, Santa Monica, all the fun parts of the beach, but a little bit more quiet. So found myself here for a while. I'm not sure I'll be leaving anytime soon.
Okay.
It's beautiful. I think when I was in LA, I didn't like the city that much, to be honest. I did like the touristy things. I did like the Hall of, like the Star Walk.
Yeah.
But my spot in LA was Malibu Creek State Park or Escondido Falls for hiking. I'm a big hiker, so that was a good time.
It's hard to beat up there. You know, it's 15, 20 minutes outside of the city and you're in like an entirely different world. Almost looks like the Italian countryside in some points in Malibu. So it's awesome. But having lived in New York for like 10 years, it's a little bit of a change of pace. And I would say if you're going to live in a city, probably New York's the spot to live. But if you enjoy, kind of the surf, golf, outdoor hiking lifestyle, then that's why I tend to find myself here.
Yeah, I've been to New York once when I was 14. Haven't been out to California, so I gotta make that move at some point in time. You referenced you had some time in New York and California. So if we had to put you on the spot here, Stefan, are you going East Coast or West Coast?
Born and raised East Coast guy, but I would say the future will be West Coast. I would imagine that our kids will be raised on the West Coast. I'm not sure that I love the idea of that. You need to kind of walk around in cold weather and go to the bodega and get a breakfast sandwich. Tends to be a little bit more avocado toast and,
healthier,
slower days out here growing up. But I'd say it's hard to beat the lifestyle and, really having an amazing time living out here. So.
Awesome, man. Well, yeah, congrats on the family and everything and good living out there in California. Sounds like a great time. I appreciate you two kind of joining me today. Obviously, two members, one of Lunchbox and Deliver That, kind of collaborating to create this cater community here that's been begun on LinkedIn and hopefully stretching outward from there and other platforms. But wanted to kind of continue the dialogue and make sure we can kind of accentuate this conversation that I know we all believe needs to continue within this catering realm and food delivery. So I think the first question we can really pose here and get into is, why was this cater community started and what is the purpose of it and where do you think it can go from here?
Yeah, it's a great question. If we look back and learn from the past 5 or 10 years and the proliferation of Uber Eats and DoorDash and Grubhub and kind of technology in general, I would say Toast obviously as well being a large contribution to the growth in restaurants and this technology industry. I would say that if I was to put my finger on one point of where we could have learned from, it was knowledge transfer. How many years did we hear constantly brands talking about, oh, my rate's this or my rate's that, or not knowing how to optimize for delivery with the DSPs or not understanding how to handle chargebacks and refunds, which now seems like it's getting all the buzz. And so what I think didn't happen was everyone was trying to operate in a silo or in a vacuum and trying to figure out how to navigate this world. And as we kind of zoom out and take looks through lots of data, survey work, talking to some of the largest brands in the country, what we really find and feel is that this move into catering, whether it's office and corporate catering, whether it's private events, whatever you might determine as quote unquote large orders. Um, we really believe that this is kind of the next evolution of products and features to be optimized in this space. You guys obviously wake up every day and work towards building a super important part of that infrastructure, and we are as well. But aside from all of that, the most important thing really is making sure that brands, operators, everyone who's trying to navigate this kind of like large order fulfillment space, understanding what others are doing that is working and making sure they're not wasting their time and beating their heads against the wall on ideas that aren't working. And so that's kind of, this is our opportunity. You know, I might say, why are you on a podcast talking about a LinkedIn community? It seems a bit cheesy. It's a lot more than that, in the sense that this is our place for knowledge sharing, knowledge transfer. And by the way, there might be things that are negatively said about our business on that. You know, it's like, what, you hope that 70, 80% of your customers love you, and that's all you can do at the end of the day is just wake up and aim for that goal. And so, you know, this isn't just like a pro Lunchbox platform. This isn't just talking about why we're so amazing, because, you know, like I said, we try to get it right 80% of the time, but it's more a community to invite operators and everyone to share their opinions and hopefully learn from one another about how to roll things out, who to use for delivery, what some effective strategies are about pricing and winning back customers. So I'd love to hear from you, Aaron, what your thoughts are on the community, but that's kind of how we're thinking of it and how it came to be.
Well, first off, hats off to you guys for actually starting this, because this was a major gap that was missing. Restaurant operators, they're confused right now. They're confused about catering. They know that if there's an opportunity for catering, it's a huge growth vehicle right now for restaurants, but they're confused on really how to do it. And I think the cater community, again, man, just, hats off to you guys for starting this, because it is so needed. I couldn't tell you how many restaurants have talked to me about, hey, how should I learn best practices? How should I, menu optimization, DSPs, like order fulfillment of catering. It's a different business entirely. So for restaurants to navigate these treacherous market environments right now, or this market environment, the cater community is, I'm just a contributor, right? I didn't start it, but from the collaboration I've seen so far, there's been some really, really good tidbits shared on there. Like just a tremendous amount of knowledge. And so, Stefan, I think it's going to turn into something significantly more than just this LinkedIn community, right? It's got to start somewhere, but I'm really looking forward to. I think we're doing some stuff at FS Tech with you guys, like on the cater community. But yeah, it's a knowledge share.
And I think like there's a few key points that need to be discussed. What are you paying in fees? Right? Let's break down $100 and $1,000 order. What are the fees? Right? It's taken 5-6 years of building businesses in this space for there now to be, I don't know, 5 companies all going after refunds and adjustments and revenue recapture, right? It seems to be the thing all restaurant operators are getting pitched on. And next year it's going to be another idea, and the year after it's going to be another idea. But we could get ahead of all that if we just actually understand the math of on $100 order and $1,000 order. What does it cost me to acquire that customer? What does it cost me to fulfill that order? What is my margin on these orders? What is the cost of delivery? What is the cost of good delivery? What is the cost of bad delivery? Right? And then at the end of the day, what am I left with? And should I be doing more of this? And I think it's gotten to a point, and we're sitting here when the market's down, I think another 5% today. And I just saw this morning 2 new restaurant groups file for Chapter 11. And in the month of July, I saw about 4 or 5 very notable groups file for Chapter 11. So the time is now. This is one of the most critical times in the history of restaurants, because we went from kind of growth in tech to then obviously COVID devastating, and then actually turned out to be net positive, I think, for a lot of brands that were on the DSPs. But now the money's out of the system. The consumer's being hurt, right? Where should you be spending your time? I believe, and we believe, that we've over-optimized the DSPs. We've over-optimized your online ordering, right? You've got every little click fixed. You've got your pricing variable based on different times. You've got 3 different delivery strategies. But the thing everyone isn't talking about is, our customers are seeing $500+ average catering orders. That's somewhere between 10 and 15 times larger than your standard DSP order, but they're spending 0% of the time focused on that segment of their business and leaving a lot of money on the table. So we're just trying to help them do it in a more cost effective and intelligent way from first principles, not launching a catering and large order program and then looking back 3 years later and figuring out, hey, we should have done this differently.
It is crazy how a lot of restaurants that we work with, I mean, directly, they view that $30 order the exact same way as that $300 order. And there needs to be that paradigm shift. And I think, again, back to the cater community, that can be a tool people use to better educate themselves, because it's a completely different delivery use case, right? Entirely. It needs a different set of tooling, different products to make it correct. Everything should be different about the way you approach a catering versus a takeout order. Everything.
And when you say it has to be different, Stefan mentioned something I thought was pretty poignant in his opening statement, kind of just how do you even define catering and what this food delivery is? And that's something I know we've went back and forth on for years.
Yeah,
How do you define this delivery versus that delivery?
So Stefan, is catering to Lunchbox, is catering a lead time, a certain lead time? Is it a certain order cost? Is it a blend of both? How do you guys define catering, if you do at all?
Yeah, we haven't gotten around to like really figuring out what the definition is. I would say we more broadly kind of focus on the large order fulfillment name. And I think some of our customers, especially the larger brands in the country, think of it that way because you're multi-strategy. You have, if your locations that are near downtown, 60-80% of their volume is going to be for corporate office catering. But then there's a ton of opportunities around birthday parties. There's a ton of opportunities around live events and weddings. We've got a lot of customers in New York City, and you would never think that like a juice brand would be a large catering customer. But it turns out that every Friday they try to have in the office a bunch of green juices and fresh juices because, I don't know, maybe people come to the office hungover on Fridays. I'm not sure. But whatever it might be, I think that it just tends to be anything kind of over the $100 average order size is where we start to see large order fulfillment needing to step in. And to your point, Aaron, like our catering product, we have an online ordering product, and that competes with the likes of Olo and all, kind of the large first party online ordering companies. Pretty standardized there, I would say. Some people have a few bells and whistles, other people don't. But we have about like 75 different unique product features that exist in our catering module that do not exist in online ordering. Now, they might be cousins or relatives of another product feature, but just to go back to your point of how different the stack needs to be, the requirements that a brand actually needs to efficiently operate in the catering world is quite high, and pack list and prep sheets and managing your inventory and managing your COGS. And so we've got lots of really cool features and functionality, but I do think that right now it's not getting enough oxygen, and it should be because people are back in the office. Large brands are subsidizing you to order catering and lunch to come into the office. And then on top of that, we're all back in person. We're all doing large events, group meetings, group dinners, group whatever it might be. And so not having a solid catering strategy that makes it easy for the person ordering, I think is kind of going to be a really big opportunity for the market in the next 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, I thought something else too that I could bring back to light that you said very early on was I guess I would call it the opportunity cost of good delivery versus bad delivery. And something I think that we talk a lot about, being the DSP provider that we are, having a good successful fleet and fulfillment solution that is able to provide top tier solutions and service can really be the make or break between that customer's experience with your brand and reordering or never ordering again.
And I'll sprinkle a little bit on top of that. All right. So I can tell immediately if a brand is going to succeed in catering or not, simply by how they think about catering, right? Are you looking to step over dollars to pick up pennies? Meaning, hey, you're going to fight over a $25 delivery fee against a 30 or 27, right? Catering is a branding play. It's basically paid taste testing. A lot of the people that have your catered food, it's getting in front of guests, 10, 20, 100 people. They might never have tried your restaurant. So it's a brand play. It's incremental revenue. So I can tell really quickly if a brand is going to be successful or not for catering. And just the delivery component alone, you said good, good delivery, bad delivery. Sure. Use one of the biggest delivery companies out there that has a huge network of drivers, but they're not going to give a damn about your brand. They're not going to treat your order like it's their own. And that ultimately is going to affect the customer. They're going to have a bad experience, more likely than not. So yeah.
Yeah. And just to add to that point, I think the old Danny Meyer quote, in the restaurant, it's 51% how you make someone feel and 49% how you actually deliver the service and the food and all that stuff, right? So I think that's a really relevant comment to take from inside the four walls. And as you think about catering delivery, which is we can build the greatest product in the world that can hyper optimize every funnel, get every customer to upsell, add more chips and sodas to the bag, make it single click easy to reorder, right? Lunchbox can spend the next $100 million building the greatest catering product in the world. However, none of it really matters when the food shows up and it's late to an office meeting by 20 minutes. It's dropped down, it's not set up. There's no photo verification and process, and it's delivered by someone who maybe you're not proud of having kind of be in the office because they're not dressed or, ready to show up because you've got a big board meeting and you want to make sure that the salads and the food are set up properly. So, we could spend all this time and energy working on product, but if we don't have the right partner or partners to make sure that the delivery is actually happening at the appropriate time and inside of all the constraints that we just discussed, then none of it really matters. And so that's why we really leverage our partnership with you all. And we think it's really important in every, whether it's sales meeting or kind of customer success and retention meeting that we're going through, talking about quarterly business reviews, as we're doing a lot of those right now, like talking about delivery strategy and measuring the efficacy of the existing delivery platforms matters so much, because that's how you're going to really ultimately drive reorders, right? It was this great ordering experience, but then it showed up on time. And that is something that I think, again, is being overlooked and not being talked about enough. And so it's certainly being addressed from our perspective, but we want to give it more, sound bites.
And we've talked about a few different pieces within this catering life journey. Obviously, we're talking delivery strategy. You guys have mentioned the tech piece and how you implement that journey. And then you have how you source orders and then packaging. And there's so many pieces to this lifeblood of the catering realm. And you guys put up a poll in the cater community. And the question was, where are you in your catering journey? And one of the answers was just starting and just learning. And that received over 25% of the vote. So I think something candidly to talk about between this cohort of folks would just be, if it were you two starting a catering business, are you starting delivery strategy? Are you starting order source? Are you starting menu segmentation? Where would you two start in your catering journey?
Yeah, so that is a really, really good question. I'll try this. You could probably have the whole podcast about that question there.
We got some time.
We'll try and summarize it. Okay. First thing I'm doing is I'm figuring out from an operational standpoint how I can support catering. Meaning, how can I make, if I'm making one sandwich right now, how can I make 10, 20, 30 at a time? I'm figuring out that part first. Okay. I'm thinking about, hey, how can I fulfill the delivery? Do I have my own drivers? Do I need a third-party delivery company to do my deliveries? Is there a blend of both? Once you have the operational pieces down, the next thing I'm thinking about is, hey, how can I drive demand? All right. There's third-party marketplaces out there that do a great job with catering. However, it's not the end all, right? So you can drive demand through third parties, through like an Easy Cater. You get hooked up with like a Lunchbox, right? Who powers your native ordering on your online, like on your native site. Your first party ordering, make it easy for customers to place catering orders, with you. And maybe you have a, one sales resource that's hitting the ground running, guerrilla marketing, going into schools, going into municipalities, going into local areas and trying to, either sampling food for them just like on the spot or like pushing your catering. That's where I would start immediately. And then, lastly, like I talked about earlier, catering is a branding play as well. Invest in good packaging that travels well, because people should know what they're eating from what brand, and it's got to be able to get from A to B with the same integrity it left your store. Okay, so you cannot just have styrofoam boxes with, screaming hot food, it's going to melt. Or it's like, make sure if you have baked beans as one of your sides, saran wrap that so it doesn't spill everywhere in the car when it's driving over. Stuff, it's little things like that.
I sense a little
Can you tell
frustration there. Do
he's
you
speaking
guys?
from
I'm assuming
experience?
you have to reimburse drivers quite a bit because baked beans fall on the seats.
Yeah, and I've also, I think
A little
five,
experience
5 or
there.
6 years ago, my Sonata got blasted with baked beans during one delivery, so I'm a little scarred from it.
Still scarred. Yeah, I don't have much to add there other than I would just say um, we made a conscious decision about 6 months ago to change our pricing strategy here, which is zero implementation fee to set up our catering module and 30 days entirely free to try it out. And so, you can either tell brands how important catering is and help walk them through that process. But what you can also do is put your money where your mouth is and make sure that it's truly easy and truly affordable for them to turn this on. We always say in the restaurant technology space, and Aaron, I'm sure you've thought this way for a long time as well, running a business. Everybody that we're signing is potentially putting their job on the line by picking us as a vendor. You know, when things go bad in the boardroom the next quarter or the quarter after, it's no secret that these brands that are betting on us to deliver a sort of technology solution are putting their jobs on the line. And so we need to protect them. And so what better way to protect them than saying, hey, you've got no real upfront cost here. You've got an entirely free trial. Just come check it out, try the product. And I know it's counterintuitive, especially for a brand that's really focused in the enterprise space. Like we are brands of 1, 2, 300 plus locations, but we think that ultimately they all have some sort of corporate stores. They're going to want to try those out at some point. Might as well make it free and easy to try. And so then they can ultimately determine what their catering strategy looks like. Try some different delivery partners, figure out, follow the data, try some different A/B testing of the front end, right? Should you turn on loyalty? Should you not? So we want to make this a playground or a sandbox that invites our brands and our customers to try this out risk-free and see how it works for their brand. Every brand's different, whether you're selling burgers or juice or ice cream. We have all three brands on our catering platform, and it's quite interesting and diverse. But the reality is they all have different strategies, and I think they've came to them over time. But it's really hard when you make it $10,000 or $20,000 up front to sign up, and then you've got 6 months that you've got to commit to this rollout, and you've got to commit a technical resource to helping them implement the API and pulling your menus from the POS. All that stuff is like early 2000s type in our mindset, and so we've made it super easy to onboard and just try out the product and see if you like it. And ultimately, some percentage of people will say this isn't the greatest thing in the world. And our hope again is that 80% of our customers say this is great and let's continue to do more with you.
Yeah, no, yeah, I love that strategy. I think that's a great thing to implement, especially for any brands out there like mom and pops who want to implement a strategy and they don't have a marketing team or a budget and they can't afford that price tag you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly right.
If we could indulge one last poll that was put up on the cater community, and this is something I think a lot of people out there are talking about, and Aaron, you mentioned kind of getting some foot soldiers out there using an online ordering strategy like Lunchbox or something else out there. The question was, what's the most pressing challenge in your everyday catering ops? And the answer that received the most votes was scaling and receiving sales, 40% of the vote.
So let me just stop you there, okay? This goes back to our point earlier about brands that are serious about catering don't have that problem, and there's a reason why, okay? They treat these two channels like they're separate businesses, right? They're not treating the small takeout order the same way they would a $1,000 order going to a boardroom. They're not looking to cut costs on that $1,000 order, right? They have the logistics down in the back of house where they can, it's like almost like a supply chain, it's a fulfillment line. All of this food that needs to be produced at a certain pickup time, can you do that or not? So to me, if you're a brand complaining about sales, look internally to your own operation, okay? Because what we see on our platform is 80% of the issues on catering deliveries are caused inside the restaurant, inside the four walls. Whether it's not producing the food on time, inaccurately, bad packaging, it causes 80% of the issues. Okay, so if that's your problem, not getting sales, look internally. And I'll just leverage this, that there are third-party marketplaces like EasyCater. There's first-party solutions like Lunchbox that, look to them to help you create a better experience and make it easier for customers to order from you.
Stefan, are you guys providing a solution of sorts on your guys' end to implement solutions for those 80% of the order issues that Aaron's talking about or speaking about?
Yeah, it's we're a incredibly data-driven company, and so what's available in the back end in terms of dashboards and reporting, in terms of order errors and reviews and guest sentiment and feedback is really critical to the success of this whole program, like Aaron just mentioned. So we think it's important. We think that measuring, again, not just how many orders, right, as you would say, and I guess marketing top of funnel, but actually the completion rate on orders, the errors, how many orders were rescheduled, why were they rescheduled, which delivery windows are the most successful, which aren't, right? Maybe you just turn off catering for 2 or 3 delivery windows throughout the week if you're not receiving orders, or you're receiving that one incremental order, but you have to keep staffing up more in advance in preparation for this, changing your cutoff windows. So like over 70 different features and functionality that is specific to our catering module really starts to show its head when you get into the robust catering strategy that a lot of our customers are doing today. And so, the short answer is we do. And the second thing is that's really why, again, we found the catering community to be this important platform, because I'm sitting in a meeting in 1 week with 3 or 4 brands with 500 plus locations talking about catering. The amount of knowledge and intel that happens and exchanged inside of those meetings doesn't get outside of those proverbial 4 walls, right? And so that's why having basically a message board, an open platform, somewhere to discuss, like, hey, XYZ from Subway, or hey, this person from this other large brand thinks that this is a critical piece to delivery, and here's what they learned about packaging. And so that's why we try to host these podcasts. It's not to sit here and talk about how great Lunchbox is. The reality is there's competitors everywhere. We feel that we're ahead of that, but brands will use other partners, not just Lunchbox. It's important that they're using it the right way, that they're asking the right questions at the start. And again, taking this back to what happened with Uber, DoorDash, and Grubhub, we would love for the next time something happens, right? Hopefully not a global pandemic, but we're not hearing, we were just laughing about the other day. There was like 20 to 30% of the brands, if you were a restaurant technology provider, around 20 to 30% of restaurants in the US pre-COVID were saying, we'll never use the DSPs. We're just not that type of business. We don't believe in that. No. Well, you don't understand. We've got a pen, we got a paper, we write down orders, we're old school. You don't get it. And that used to be that's how we used to communicate with our board. What is your TAM? Well, 20, take 1.3 million rooftops in the US restaurants, get rid of about 30% of them because they'll just never use DSPs. And now fast forward, it's like, I don't know, 5%, right? So we don't want to have something, we don't want to skate towards whatever the next event is that causes this disruption and have brands be saying the same thing, which is 911, we immediately need to turn on large order fulfillment. We are stuck. We didn't do this. We should have done this. And then roll out half-baked strategy on the fly while playing from behind. So we're trying to get ahead of that. We're trying to convince brands why it's so important. And again, we're leading with an open forum to have dialogue and share about what you're paying in fees. What are your commission rates? What are you paying for good delivery versus bad delivery? How are you generating more top of funnel? And then aside from all that, really focusing on turn this on for free. Tell us that you love it. If you don't, see you later. No one has to lose their job over it. So,
hey, Stefan, what's your take on like menu optimization for catering? 'Cause that's one thing I did think about a little bit, is that, a lot of brands also that really pump catering, that do a ton of catering, they have a limited menu, or they limit their menu to items that travel well or that cater well. Do you guys have any sort of like features on your product around menu optimization?
Yeah, so we integrate with all of the most important point of sale systems, and we pull the menus directly from there. So it wouldn't be uncommon to have a unique catering menu in that system. And it should be a limited menu. You can't be delivering $400 worth of an item that doesn't travel well, it's just not going to sit well with anyone, and it's going to be a big disappointment. So the ability to toggle up and down in terms of what your core POS menu is, and then mapping items over to your catering menu is built into the POS integrations that we have. So being able to use that as a source of truth and then reconcile items back to the point of sale is super critical here. But then also at the same time, A/B testing your menus is core to the strategy of what we learned from our core online ordering product, which is, hey, we were doing this for 4 or 5 years solo, building websites and apps for restaurants and helping them optimize that $30 order funnel. And so we've got a lot of tools and tricks and tips to help you have like the best UI UX, or how to use AI and machine learning that we've been implementing over the last 24 months. I know buzzword, but how to implement that to actually push upsells, right? Creative upsells, and being able to story tell about the whole customer, right? They visited you in store, and we know that because they ordered from a kiosk. And then they went and ordered from your website, and they are actually a mobile app user. And now they're actually coming in and ordering catering. And so we know predictably what they like, what they tend to add to the bag. And sure, an office is going to be a little bit different than maybe an individual order, but we're getting ahead of that by using all this machine learning and being able to have a full picture into what diners and guests are ordering to be able to provide them with upsells, and then being able to A, B, C test menus, change things, implement, and also roll those menus out in a faster way.
Yeah, I think menu optimization can be a major key. Like you mentioned, traveling well is obviously a huge pain point on our end.
Don't even give the guest the option to make the order not go well.
Right.
You know? Just don't give them the option.
Yeah.
I have a question for both of you guys. What about
shoot.
menu optimization? Not to interrupt, but how do you think and feel about increased prices on catering? So, the average sandwich costs, let's just say $12, and you put 20 of them together. Like, we're seeing a lot of brands being limited from increasing their pricing on the DSP platforms for catering. And so I would just love to get your feedback on like what you're seeing brands want to do and how they're thinking about increasing prices, or even dynamic pricing, right? During Friday lunch, charging a little bit more than they would on a Monday afternoon catered lunch.
Do you want to go first? Or just want me to take this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me specifically as a consumer, I think for me, having the cost put onto you, I think from my vantage point is a little skewed, because I understand that's kind of, I grew up in the restaurant industry. I'm working with Deliver That DSP provider. So I understand a lot of these services, they're not going to take the cost onto themselves, right? It's going to get pushed on the consumer. So I understand from that vantage point, and you kind of just accept it in that light. But then as you mentioned towards the end there, I think I had this conversation well before Carl and Ashwin and Juicer was even a thing. Like, dynamic pricing feels like a no-brainer in my worldview. It's a part of all these other industries, hotels, airlines, and it's like restaurants are just, for some reason, always on the back end of implementing these kind of technology pieces. So for me, the price point, I think it's, especially where we're getting into an economic situation, it's maybe on the beginning of wave A, some would say, where it's a little dicey out there, but you kind of just come to the point where you accept it. And if you want to pay for that experience and that convenience, that's what you're going to have to do.
Great answer. I'm going to go a little bit longer on this one, though. Okay, this is a phenomenal question.
I tried to rope in the end there.
It's a phenomenal
what
question,
you would say.
Because I think you're seeing a very big shift in the market right now. Okay, you mentioned that on the third-party marketplaces, that restaurants are now beefing up their prices to essentially offset the fees that they're being charged, and I think that restaurants should 100% be doing this. Otherwise, you are educating your customers to go to a third-party website to order your food from, when in all reality, the shift that will happen over the next year, 2 years, this is why Lunchbox will keep getting bigger and bigger. First-party catering solutions are going to become a very, very mainstream thing for restaurants. Very mainstream. Because when you talk about a $300 ticket or a $400 ticket or $500, $1,000, 20-30% of that is way more than that $20-30 order. So again, why the marketplaces exist, and they solved a huge problem, by the way. They solved a massive, they made it easy for consumers to order food from a plethora of restaurants, cuisine types. They solved the problem, and restaurants paid the price for that, especially during COVID when everyone was so reliant on them. Now that people are getting smarter and realizing, like we should be doing this ourselves. That's why the Lunchboxes of the world that provide these first party solutions are gonna be the champions of restaurants long term. Right? They're going to be pushing these restaurants to provide a better service with better tooling and product, and that will allow them to not hike their prices up, which is what will inevitably have to happen on the marketplaces. It has to happen.
And you want the solution to be first party ordering, right? I think is that a dirty little secret, or is that what you want it to be?
So I think there's a use case for each. Okay, think if you're an office admin and your job every week is to order 5 or 6 lunches for your office.
Make it easier on you.
Okay. You go to I'll use EasyCater again. I'll plug them in. Okay. You go on EasyCater. That receptionist has no further. She clicks a couple buttons. She can order one card on one platform, and she can order from 4 different restaurants. Right. But the customer, the drug sales rep that's in your area, they might want to use, your local native website, or your birthday parties, or sales. Yeah. So there is definitely a use case for each. All I'm saying is that, like, when you talk about the price points, catering to me should not be dynamically priced. No way. I don't. Maybe like by like your area or geographical area, but I don't think, hey, if you order at Tuesday at 4:00, maybe you could do dynamic pricing on like different times of the day you order. Meaning, like if you give more advance notice, maybe you get a cheaper price. Maybe if you order last second, that's when the items shoot up per, the cost per item. But I just think that for catering, the price point has to be economical, and the price point shouldn't go up the more you order. It should go down.
I'm somewhere in between, so I'll defer to the 2 experts on this topic.
Well, where do you sit? How do you feel about it?
It's a great thought experiment. What I believe is that ultimately every business requires an incredible amount of science to figure out where they should be. And so there's someone that works in growth or marketing or sales or whoever it might be at the said business that's focused on funnel optimization, that's focused on driving repeat orders. Someone has a financial number on their head at these organizations that is focused on, like, what are we doing top of funnel? How much top line revenue are we generating from this business, and how can we get that to be higher? And so I think that, what we've found over the past few years in this dynamic pricing boom, if you will, is that some brands it makes a lot of sense for, and they have flexibility up to 15, 20, 30%, and other brands. And so what that means is, hey, they probably just priced their product a little bit wrong. Right? There wasn't a perfect pricing for their product. And so they actually have some utility to go higher on their core pricing. And then there's some brands that have increased prices and it hasn't worked for. And so I do believe that every brand should use a little bit of science when they're doing this, and constantly be measuring and testing different menus, different orders of the menus, right? What items go first, what items you mark as featured, and the price points. And perhaps you realize that, well, you didn't have perfect pricing before, and you have an opportunity to learn and update that pricing, or maybe you were priced to perfection and you don't need to change anything. So I think 1 order, 3 orders, 5 orders doesn't do anything, but at scale across hundreds and hundreds of locations, the size of the brands that we work with, you'll learn pretty quickly if you're paying attention, and you should use a platform that allows you to measure and track and let you pay attention more easily.
Adequate response. I appreciate it. I appreciate the input, Stefan. Do you guys have anything else you want to say about the Cater community? Obviously, people can join within LinkedIn, search Cater community, join. You're right in there. I think there's a little over 100 members in there right now, spanning 10s, 20, hundreds worth of brands. So I mean,
I think the actual page itself has right around 1,000, maybe a little bit more. And they just started it. I mean, and the fact it's gotten this much traction this quickly is showing you people are looking to leverage this community even more. So,
yeah, two things I'll leave you guys with. First is we need more people to contribute to the page. So go in there, tell us your war stories, your horror stories, what's broken, what doesn't work, what you hate, what you love. what's going great in catering, call brands out, call vendors out in a positive light, in a negative light, whatever light it is. Let's be respectful, but let's also have an open dialogue about what works and what doesn't. That is how we will all win together. And the second thing is that, like I mentioned earlier, not to be doom and gloom, but it's a difficult time right now for the consumer. The consumer is in a challenged position. Credit card lending's at all-time high, et cetera, et cetera. You can look at all the data points. I'm not here to be a macroeconomic expert, but that will impact restaurant brands. We've seen a number go bankrupt recently. My suspicion is there's more coming shortly. And so what do we need to be doing? And it's, where is the next avenue of growth going to come from? And it's my bet that there's probably a few percentage points on your first party ordering. There's probably a little room for optimization on the DSPs. But my challenge to you is that if DSPs went from 0 or 5% of top line to 30, 40, 50% of top line today, start to think with that mindset about 3 or 5 years from now, what your catering top line revenue will be, which is probably from sub 1% to probably somewhere around hopefully 5% of top line. And so that journey takes 24 to 36 months of building that brand and that reputation with your packaging and with your presence that, hey, we're hosting a birthday party, or hey, we're getting our friends together, or 60% of our orders come from corporate. Hey, we're hosting office lunches. We are the go-to spot to do catering. And maybe it's a slightly different menu. Maybe it's priced a little bit differently. Whatever that might be is great. But you should at least be out there trying it, because everything else has kind of been constrained and optimized to what we believe almost as perfect as possible. And so now step into a new arena, try a new product, and see if it works for your brand. And my bet is that most brands will find some avenue to do successful catering and have some sort of large order strategy that is the answer isn't we're doing nothing about it.
Gentlemen, I appreciate your time today. Stefan, Aaron, thank you so much for coming back in office. And Stefan, thank you so much for joining us over Zoom here today. $120 billion industry by 2030, I think. So I think we need to talk about it a little bit more.
Yeah, we'll keep it going, man. But Stefan, are you going to be at FS Tech?
I'll be there. Yeah, we're hosting a dinner. I think we're hosting a really cool pickleball event. We got a couple good activations, so I'm looking forward to seeing you guys there.
Awesome, man. We'll be there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Stefan. We'll see you soon.
Great. Have a good one, everyone. See ya.